So Dan has taken a mulligan to 6 here. He's going to scry for his 6. He has kept it. We start off on a tapped Temple Garden and an Eldrazi Temple for Jack. Gavany Township and a Scavenging Ooze is going to be turn 2 for Dan here. Jack will go ahead on turn 2, his own turn 2, and play out a Matter Shaper. I just can't talk apparently for some reason now. That was played off of an Urza's Power Plant as well, so we have 1 out of 3 Tron pieces assembled. Dan deciding what he wants his third land to be. He has his options are a Shambling Vents, or in this case, what he's decided on, a second copy of Gavany Township. Lingering Souls will be cast. It's going to bring a pair of spirits along with it. There is a Thought-Knot Seer. So this is a pretty great turn 3 here for Jack. We look at the hand of Shambling Vent, Liliana the Last Hope, and I believe a Path to Exile. Choice here is going to be Path to Exile, I think. Liliana does not seem like a threat on this board. Jack apparently disagrees and decides that Liliana is the one to take, not the one that can answer Thought-Knot Seer and draw his opponent a card. It's an interesting line he's taking here. I don't know if I agree with it, but, you know. Dan here is going to start by sending in with a pair of spirits, bringing Jack to 18. They do, of course, fly, so nothing that Jack can do about that. The draw is going to be a copy of All Is Dust. A second power plant comes down. Reality Smasher, if it's available, is going to be an option here. Instead, however, we're going to go with a second copy of Thought-Knot Seer. Dan's going to immediately fire off Path to Exile on the first Thought-Knot Seer. He'll draw a card for that. The second one will resolve. He only has one choice. He has to take English and Kozlek, of course. It looks like Jack does play at least one copy of Wastes. That will come into play tapped, which is important, so he can't use the mana this turn. So hopefully he doesn't try to. Okay, yeah, there we go. It is tapped, so that's fine. We're going to come in for 3 points of damage with this Matter Reshaper. Dan will have no blocks, and he'll fall to 17. So pretty straightforward turn there. He was left with just a Forest in hand. He did draw a spell here. I don't quite have a great look at what it is. However, this Forest does mean that Dan is now able to use his Gavany Township. Here comes the attack for 2. We're going to leave it at just 2. Jack will fall to 16. And then we're going to flash back our Lingering Souls. So that's fine. Double Gavany Township here is really important for Dan. Just because it does mean that that Ghost Quarter can't take him off Township. Matter Reshaper is drawn here for Jack. He's got a Reality Smasher in his hand. He's got another Matter Reshaper. We're going to go ahead and play out Reality Smasher here. It's a good one. And we're going to come in for 15. No, 12. 12. So 12 coming in here. Dan has to decide what he wants to do. Spirit's not very good at blocking Reality Smasher. Can block Thought-Knot Seer just fine. Okay. He's going to go ahead and put both of his spirits in front of the Matter Reshaper. Okay, it's going to go ahead and kill it off. Jack has a trigger. It's going to flip over a copy of Urza's Mine, put Urza's Mine into play. Dan does fall to 8. He takes 9 off its attack. Jack will pass back. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Jack does have enough mana to now cast All Is Dust. Eldrazi Temple, very importantly, says you may tap it for 2 mana to cast an Eldrazi spell. It doesn't care if it's a creature or not. And All Is Dust is a tribal Eldrazi card. So big bonus there. And if Jack gets to untap, I think he just wins because of all his dust. Unless Dan... No, Dan only has one black source. He can't actually activate this scaling event yet, so... We're going to come in for an attack for 3. We're going to leave back just a spirit, so Jack will fall to 13. Oh, sorry, 14. A Goyf, and this should be game. Okay, it's not going to be game because he is going to drain Jack for 2 life. So Dan will go up to 10. So he gets a little bit lucky here. It would have been crazy if he decided to look at Jack's hand and take away a spell, because it would have found this all as dust. It doesn't exile them. They're just sacrificed. And then 9 more damage coming across. So Jack puts Dan to 1. I don't think Dan has an out here. He doesn't main deck Damnation. And whatever he drew wasn't enough. So game 1 does go over to our Eldrazi Tron player. Man, I can just not talk tonight. I don't know what it is. Goes over to the Eldrazi Tron player in Jack. Again, if Dan had just decided... You know, let's look at your hand, I guess. We'll see if there's anything I can take. And oh, look at this. All is dust. Seems good. All right, so going into the sideboard here again, Dan, I mean, you can't really be happy with facing off against a Tron deck. It's just not a matchup you're favored in. And outside of that, Eldrazi is not a good matchup for you. I'm pretty sure as well, so... All right, so it looks like Dan all set with his decisions here. Shuffling up for game 2. Gonna be looking to win this game to force a game 3. Jack looking to close it out in 2. And again, I mean, looking at just the 2 decks on their own, I do have to feel that Jack is still favored, just based on the matchups this deck has these decks have against each other. It's just there's a clear favorite in this matchup, and there's not a lot that Dan can really do to counteract it. It's just Abzan is not equipped to fight Tron very well. Fulminator Mage is a good one, of course, but Inquisition of Kozilek is going to start things off here. What do we have? Expedition Map, Crucible of Worlds, Ghost Quarter, Urza's Mine, Thought Not Seer, All Is Dust, Matter Reshaper. So probably taking away this Expedition Map here. Seems like pretty easy choice. Crucible doesn't excite me. The only thing that I'd be scared about with the Crucible is the fact that he already has Ghost Quarter to go with it. So that would scare me a bit. He's going to scare him right off of it, in fact. So he will take away the expedition map, or sorry, the Crucible of Worlds rather. I don't know if I'm. Yeah, I don't know. This now gives Jack, like if Jack, for instance, top decks another Tron piece, Dan's in a world of trouble unless he has a Fulminator Mage in his hand. He did bring him in. We do see it there. He actually cut right to it, but he needs it in his hand if he doesn't already have it. So, especially if Jack finds that second Tron piece naturally. Life is a bit interesting in this matchup. Normally against Tron, your life total isn't that relevant just because Tron is swinging with such big numbers anyways. I don't know. All right, Dan got a little bit lucky because that's another mine. It's different art, but it is in fact the same card, unfortunately, for Jack. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to sacrifice map immediately. I imagine we're going to go find a temple here. Yeah, we are, so we can set up a Thought-Knot Seer next turn. And then the following turn we have a Rally Smasher. I saw the white border there on the draw step, and I thought for sure, wow, Jack found a miracle on top of his deck there. Tarmogoyf does attack for 3, so Jack does fall to 17. And there is a Scavenging Ooze. So the draw was a Dismember. That right now can deal with either creature. Goyf is still a 3/4. It would only go up to a 4/5 at best. So he is going to go ahead and fire off that Dismember. He's going to pay 4 life to do it. This will make Goyf a 4/5, but that will not be enough. At the moment, we have instant, land, sorcery, artifact. So if Dan wanted to, he could Fatal Push his own Scavenging Ooze, which would keep the Tarmogoyf alive because it would make it a 5/6. And put it out of the range of this Dismember. It's a pretty big cost to pay, though. I will say Fatal Push doesn't have many better targets. I believe Dan was hoping here that Jack would just play a Thought-Knot Seer, because then he could crack his fetch and push the Thought-Knot Seer immediately. His hand right now: Path to Exile, Fatal Push, and a Swamp. Dan not too sure what he wants to do here. Okay, he's going to let the Dismember resolve. He'll let the Tarmogoyf die. And then Jack will follow it up with a copy of Matter Reshaper. This is okay because I was just saying, Dan, if he wanted to, could have pushed on unstep, but I guess he decided not to. Fulminator Mage is a great draw there for Dan, however. He'll get to blow up the temple. And if he'd like, he can also still push away the Reshaper thanks to that 4th land. I don't know how much you want to do that, but we'll see. Okay, Mage and pass the turn back. On your upkeep or on your draw step, I'm going to go ahead and blow up your temple. The draw for Jack was a copy of Power Plant, Urza's Power Plant, so there it is. Still has 3 mana. There is another Matter Reshaper in his hand. We're going to go ahead and play out that Matter Reshaper, and then we're going to pass the turn back. Matter Reshaper doesn't have to die, so Path to Exile is relevant here. It does get around the Reshaper's ability. But Jack is now back to being 1 land away from having Tron, so... Okay, Dan will, at the end of turn, fetch out a copy of Temple Garden tapped. All right, and we'll start our next turn. So, Path to Exile and Fatal Push in hand. We can't Fatal Push a Reshaper now. Man, I am jamming. I guess you have to put one in front, don't you? No. You have to put both to get this. Right? Because Dan only has one creature. Yeah, I think Jack did put both in front, which I think is definitely the correct choice. If that is in fact what he did here. So Dan now no longer able to save his Scavenging Ooze. There's only one creature amongst the graveyards right now, so and Fatal Push is not. Oh, sorry, there's two. There is two. Okay, so Dan will gain 2 life. I forgot about Fulminator Mage. Yeah, he's saying before damage I have effects, and that is obviously important because he does want to save this Scavenging Ooze. Oh, I guess I'm wrong. Okay, sure. So we have a couple triggers here. The first one's going to find a Buried Ruin. The second one's going to find a second copy of Urza's Mine. So not a bad trade. A little bit of acceleration there. The draw was a Basilisk Caller. There's another Urza's Mine. So we have 6 mana available. We can play out. Sure, Thought-Knot's here's a good start. Yeah, there's 3 mines in play and 1 power plant, so Tron is not assembled just yet. Thought-Knot Seer is going to get this Path to Exile. The choice is Fatal Push or nothing else, so Fatal Push it is. A Plains left in hand for Dan right now, not really what you're looking for. What does Buried Ruin do again? Add colorless to your mana pool. 2, tap it, sacrifice it, return target artifact card from graveyard to your hand. Okay. Alright, sure, I guess. Alright, we're just going to go ahead and play a Basilisk Caller. I mean, Jack is definitely in a good spot again. Dan's draw, I think it was a Grim Flare. Yeah, it was. So that's a good draw for Dan. Instant sorcery land creature. So the Delirium is turned on. It is a 4/4. Jack will untap with 7 mana. His draw was a tower, so we go from 7 mana to approximately 1 billion. Buried Ruin is going to return, I guess, Crucible of Worlds. Sure. I think you just fire off this this All Is Dust. I don't think you want to let Grimflayer connect. You're in a great spot right now. Top decking, you have much better top decks than your opponent does. So I think you're totally okay with going to that part of the game. I don't think you want to get greedy with this All Is Dust and try and get more value out of it. Simply because if Dan doesn't really play into it, you're just sitting there with nothing in your hand. And then if Dan can load enough into his hand, post All Is Dust, he just gets to flood the board with threats, and you have no answer left. So I think firing off All Is Dust now is the correct choice. I feel it's just the safest line. And yeah, Jack is going to go ahead and do that. So down goes... so here we are, top deck mode. The difference here, of course, a Crucible of Worlds is a big difference here. With a Ghost Quarter in the graveyard, we're simply at a point where we're finding out how many basics Dan actually plays. I have to imagine we're getting close to none left, and yeah, we're already there. So no more lands in, or no more basic lands in the deck for Dan. And I mean, yeah, this is the point here. Even with the better late game, he doesn't have to draw anything. He can just keep playing a Ghost Quarter, and he can lock Dan out of all his mana. Dan has found a copy of Lingering Souls, so I mean that's okay, but it's going to be somewhat of a clock. Well, it's not as good as Reality Smasher, that's for sure. Ghost Quarter, cut you off of your open mana source. I would have liked to have seen him cut him off of white there, probably. Just because it takes away Path to Exile as an out. But and I think Dan has a couple paths in his hand. So I think he's going to get a little bit punished here. But Flashback Lingering Souls, we have, we doubled our clock now. And we come for 2. Jack down to 11. Inquisition of Kozilek and 2 Path to Exiles in hand for Dan right now, so bring back Ghost Quarter. Yeah, we're gonna respond by and Jack drew Ratchet Bomb. Oh, that's a good draw. We get to wipe the board of all your spirits. And all we have to do is pay 2 mana. Another Ghost Quarter being fired off here. We're winning the grindy way here for sure. I think the Ratchet Bomb is enough to end the game, in all honesty. Yeah, Ratchet Bomb, blow it up. and you see Dan there, just a little like, what can you do, right? It's just Tron got this lock in place, and you just can't do anything about it. He doesn't Jack doesn't even need a threat. Right? Like the threat is what ends the game. Like right now, he's fine doing this. He's fine saying, yeah, I'll draw Ghost Quarter every turn, and have it be a strip mine. Maelstrom Pulse, no use. Dan is a land short of being able to cast it, unfortunately. So Thought Knot Seer is going to take away Maelstrom Pulse. Or Path to Exile. Interesting that Dan didn't fire off Path in response. He may not have any more white Shocklands to get, maybe? I don't know. Yeah, get rid of your forest. Yeah, there you go. This is a slow, painful death for Dan. He's playing out to the bitter end, though. Your opponent's going to have a Basilisk collared up Thought Knot Seer. You have literally 1 permanent in play, and it's a land. Your opponent gets to strip mine you every turn. But we're playing it out. We're getting there. It just doesn't even sacrifice the fetch line. Just, yeah, sure, whatever, you kill it. I don't care. And Jack now at 15 with Dan at 7. Thanks to Thought Knot Seer connecting last turn. Dan now at 3. Jack at 19. Jackson, I go for a perfect win here. 20 life to your opponent's 0 life, and they have no permanents in play. Even brought in Chalice of the Void. I don't know about that, but sure enough, there is the match in 2